In the PoetTrios, highly regarded Dutch and British poets work together with bilingual language advisors that you heard about Francis talk about earlier to translate each other's poetry. So I'll just give you a brief introduction to each poet, and then they'll begin, and the translations will be projected behind them, so you can keep the two languages in dialogue for yourself as well. So you've already heard a bit about Bill, but Bill is a celebrated Scottish poet and was 2017 chair of the T.S. Eliot Prize jury. And then we have Dutch poet Elma van Haren, whose debut received the C. Budding Prize at Poetry International in Rotterdam for best debut. She's prize-winning author of over 10 volumes of poetry, and last year published her first novel in Dutch, which I've roughly translated as Ms. Ovo. I'm sure there's a better. Yeah, I can't pronounce the Dutch, sorry. And as well as being a prose and poetry writer, Elma is a visual artist too, among many other things. Sean O'Brien is a prolific and celebrated poet, critic and playwright. He's won many major prizes, such as the Eric Gregory Award, the Forward Poetry Prize twice, and the T.S. Eliot Prize, to highlight a few. His ninth poetry collection, Europa, was published in 2018. He's also Professor of Creative Writing at Newcastle University, Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature, and in 2017 he was Bijlmerveld Visiting Professor at St Anne's College, Oxford. Gelens is a Dutch writer of poetry, essays and prose. Helene is a true polymath, and I got to witness some of her many areas of knowledge when I was sitting in on the workshops. She's worked in a range of disciplines, from astronomy to medieval history to philosophy, and that really does come through in her very cerebral and vibrant poetry. Helene is the author of 3 poetry collections, the second of which was awarded the prestigious Jan Kampert Prize. And English translations of Helene's poetry have appeared in UK-based literary magazines such as Ambit, Poetry London and The North. Fiona Sampson, who is also a co-investigator on our project, is a prize-winning poet and prose writer whose work has been translated into 37 languages. So Fiona knows a lot about what it feels like to be translated. Recently, you might have seen Fiona's new book in pretty much every bookshop up and down the country. She's written a new biography, In Search of Mary Shelley, the girl who wrote Frankenstein, which has received rave reviews pretty much everywhere, and was serialised as Book of the Week on BBC Radio 4. Fiona is director-founder of the Roehampton Poetry Centre, where she's a professor, and editor of Poetry Quarterly Poem. And finally, I'm just going to give a brief summary of Menno Wigman, who was our wonderful collaborator, a very celebrated Dutch poet who very sadly passed away early this year, which was a great shock to all of us at the age of 51. His prize-winning poetry combines a return to traditional forms with tight rhythm, full of full or half rhymes, but with a modern big city bite that goes to the heart of our turn-of-the-century human condition. This has gained him not only enormous respect with his peers, critics and editors, but popularity among a wider poetry-loving public. His final volume, which has been described by critics as his best yet, winning the prestigious Ida Gerhardt Poetry Prize in 2018, Schleudig met Geluk, which roughly translates as sloppy with luck, which sounds like a brilliant title to me, has sadly become his swan song. Anyway, with no further ado, Bill Herbert's going to take the stage to read his poetry.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to read 2 poems. The first one is called The Dream of the Airport. This is a poem about, I suppose, aging, in the sense that when you're 19, having to sleep in an airport doesn't seem to be much of a problem. When you get to my age, you curse the stars and everything else. All I can say is, do not hire a car from Gold Star Cars. They are scoundrels and do not wait in the airport for you. So this took place in Kazantzakis airport in Crete, where I go many times, and it draws on the imagery of that island. And this was particularly difficult for my colleagues to translate, as we found on the first morning of our first workshop that I brought the wrong version. And we found this about 20 minutes into the act of translating. And Elma was very graceful about what an idiot she'd been assigned. The dream of the airport. The car hire company bestows upon you the great gift of abandoning you to the airport overnight. Returned to the eternal strip lights of your early travels, you wrap your head in the checkered pakama, place the green Ethiopian Airways eye mask on your face, and insert the orange earplugs which can't quite block out the music of the continuity, that shuffling of the less lucky travellers, banging of trays as their diminished possessions are scanned, ping and pronouncement of the missing's names by the same old siren. How many decades have you been passed through here without ever leaving home? Try escaping into your recurrent dream, the one about an airport. Then it's 4. Abandon sleep to walk directly through the dream of the airport. Its labyrinth as one bright, uncomplicating hall. Your minotaur passes, long horns carved with lists, memoranda, minutiae of the dates he fears. His horns score both walls at once. His hooves click and chip this marble. Here's your chance to miss tomorrow in its role as the next episode, to lose the need for such times to pass, that dumb urgency. Go out into the night's cool breezes. Be glad the bus which will return you to your place in the action has not yet arrived. Look up. There are still no birds. No stars have been allocated to you. You forget, but this is the hour at which your father died. The night is like a charcoal horse pacing in its ash paddock. It chafes itself away as it walks. Walk back into the long departure hall and pass among the pissed-off officials, the ecstatic sleepers. We are already within Asclepius's temple. Look at the opposite end. She's still asleep, the woman you must travel with. The furniture of your luggage surrounds her like a room with no walls. She is sleeping in public. We are all sleeping in public together. Sleeping in public together forever. Go to her and rewind yourself in the shawl and pray, your head to her head. The lights keep burning. Go to her and dream about the airport in the night. The second one is called Lion and Sidecar. And I'm sorry, Helene, I've changed it. It's based on a postcard which I lost and could not remember distinctly enough to let it be a postcard. So it became a lost thing that dwelt with me. And the postcard was of a lion in the sidecar of a motorbike on an old wall of death, going round and round on the inside of the wall of death. And I had this sense that the lion was wearing goggles. And I couldn't quite remember, and that got me into the poem. And it reminded me, for some reason, of Cocteau, the Cocteau's film Orphée, in which when Orphée, played by Jean Marais, gets into the underworld, he's being blasted by this wind the whole time, because he's alive and the wind is trying to push him out of the realm of death. And Herbert is, of course, the chauffeur in Orphée. Lion in sidecar. It's a black and white wall of death, breathless with blur. You can almost hear the fleet trundle of the motorcycle wheels on the cheap plywood planks. It's a barrel of roar. The lion is really getting into it at 90 degrees to vertical, leaning into the rush of air, eyes slitted, mane flaring like the sun in a speeded up, unhinging orrery, like Jean Marais in the underworld's gale. Begoggled Herbert bears him bravely, always upward, though the lion knows in these realms up is always down. Does the lion know where he is going? Does the lion know where we are going? Our animal stares straight ahead as the cycle ascends to the watchers along the brim.
It's not a good morning anymore. It's a good afternoon, or not? Okay. I'm very honored to be part of this trio translation session, and I'm going to read two poems. The first is translated by Fiona. I was wondering how she translated the title.
Als niet zus.
If not this, okay. It's a poem about the never diminishing question how to behave in life. And every day you are presented new forms of astonishment, and I always am looking for answers. So this is a poem about it. Als niet zus in Dutch. Als niet zus. Het weer is luw, vol duizelingen van gepaard aan luwte. Kinderen worden op ouderlijke schouders gehezen voor een lesje overzicht, maar ik ben opgegroeid zonder, en dan ook nog willekeurig ergens. Tot op heden bezig daarvan weg zien te komen, van onder de gestaagheid vandaan, het toeval, het lot, er onderdoor graven desnoods, door het riool en dan naar buiten breken, vol blauwe plekken vanwege het verhaal laten kruipen waar het niet gaan kan. Al weet ik nooit op welke schaal, van 1 tot 10, dat drama aanspoelt in mijn hoofd, in welke verhouding hoofdzaak, bijzaak en welk item door zal buigen onder de zwaartekracht. Zak ik door de mat bij de voordeur de kelder in? Zal ik dan, zolang ik handen heb, applaudisseren? In een escape room los ik het vraagstuk 1, 2, 3 op. Mijn eigen raadsels blijven blaffend, onveranderlijk, dagelijks. Hoezo dat meisje met haar Pools gezicht? In een geel uniform drinkt ze koffie, vlechten rond haar hoofd, Iers besproet, ratelt Spaans, knikt koel Nederlands. Ik kijk hoe ze wegkadanst in haar eierkoek geel, haar kip curry salade kentekenplaatkleur en denk, wellicht zo? Bestaan op bananen milkshake-achtige wijze, wijder en warmer zijn, een voller, romiger verhaal? 2. Gisteren was al langer dan vorige dagen en vandaag lijkt nog dieper. Veel te kort geslapen vanwege een aanwakkerend verlangen dat halfweg bleef hangen in koele contouren, de witte lupine gelijk. Familie van de nature sterke paarse en stralend, veel geuriger, maar heel fragiel en snel verwelkt. Bij honderden groeien ze in het park onder de struiken en houden zich zorgvuldig uit de zon. Ook een vrouw zoekt een plek in de schaduw, maar overal is de schaduw bezet. Dan trekt ze plots haar kleren uit en vlijt zich midden op het blakerende gras. Ik kijk toe hoe op haar schouders roze cirkels verschijnen, blozend radijs. Onder de huid borrelt frambozenlimonade. Later op de dag zal iemand daarvan drinken en de brand met koele lippen bedaren. Dus, zo, paarse lupine zijn en dan glijden in het moment. Smooth, ruimhartig, omarmend. Een vitaminerijk teken van levenslust, overtuigd van een gelukkige afloop. 3. Zomeravond. Kinderstemmen verklaren de tijd van de dag. Verstoppertje spelen. De schemering duwt het licht naar achter, vult kamers en straten, verhult alle verhalen. Wie niet weg is, wordt al niet meer gezien. 'S Nachts worden raadsels ravijnen, maar ik heb me voorbereid. Zie hier, one for the dark, voor de gemoedsrust, voor weldadige dromen. Een man stierf, nadat zijn labrador zijn wonden had schoongelikt. Uit liefde, dacht de man. En dat was waar, zo was het. Uit liefde doodgelikt. Zo. And then the shortest one. De orde handhaaft zich. De zoet miauwende Thaise muziek huppelt met schokjes je hoofd in en probeert daar wat moois te bouwen, maar vindt er slechts bouwstenen van westerse makelij. Dat zoet gemiauw, waterlelies, lotusbloemen, vlinders als een hand zo groot, zilveren offergaven, kunstig gevouwen papieren rozen, pittige pepers, wiegende donkere vrouwen met geurende oliën, glanzend op een hazelnoothuid. Dat wil je aanraken en wil je dat niet, dan dansen ze vanzelf zo je handen in. Hoe kan je daar nu iets van maken dat voor jou alleen is, zinvol, geldig? Want dit zijn allemanszaken. Je bedenkt het voordat het je overkomen is. Probeer maar. Denk aan met de hand gemaakte zijden mantelpakjes, aan krokodillenleren tassen, aan afrodisië van gemalen pantertand. En kijk, als je daar bent aangeland, dan krijst de muziek en wringt zich in bochten. Er vindt een worsteling plaats met de krokodil. Er bloedt een gapende roze holte onder de geschonden huid. Een woedende panter struint achter heel dun gaas in een te kleine kooi. Dus weg ermee, snel koel in een bootje voor het verzetten van zinnen. Jonge hondjes, bamboe in bloei, lachende kinderen glad in zwart water. De dorst gelest met een mango-longdrink onder oranje-rode parasols. Een zevenkoppige god hurkt op de schaduwrijke oevers en schudt met een drakenlach al zijn hoofden. Wat proberen ze daar toch in het westen? Van Aziatische boemboes een blokhut bouwen, van kokos een sneeuwpop? Denken ze echt dat als ze maar genoeg boeddha's op de vensterbank zetten, of in de tuin, in een badkamer, kaarsje erbij, wierookstokje walmend, ze erin zullen slagen hun koppie krauwende cellen in het gelid te houden?
Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great pleasure to be involved in the PoetTrio project, not least for hearing the beauty of the Dutch language spoken aloud, which has sound resources that English speakers might well envy. This poem is called Jaguar. It takes place in Mexico City. The jaguar is one of the two major mythological creatures of Mexico, along with the eagle, the aguilar and the jaguar. Anyway, this starts out in a bar. Jaguar. A man with the head of a jaguar sits at the bar. He has read all the papers and drunk too much coffee, and still it is early. But now, by the patterns he plays with his hands on the brass bar rail and the twin bass drum pedals of his great hind paws on the rung of the bar stool, what he can hear is a different music. Neither the apologies delivered by the barrel organs, nor the vaunts of the narco corridos, nor yet the appeals for vengeance in the name of love, preferred by the stations that cleaners and cab drivers tune to when searching for something resembling silence in Mexico City. The jaguar purrs, he growls, and on the stroke of noon he sips Pacifico beer and goes on waiting. The waves of percussion surge and hold, while chicas and matrons, the bankers, the beggars, the cops, and the military armed to the teeth pass up and down the magic radii extending from Zocalo to the furthest slum. So who will dare to ask the jaguar if he performs requests and might be called upon to sing aloud the song that ripples through the fur and muscle his white shirt and sober charcoal suit cannot disguise, the song of death and paradise? Will you? As if the jaguar can tell, merely by glancing your way as you pass, he shakes his head just barely, and his golden stare, although it means you are unworthy even to appeal to hear that secret music, nonetheless agrees that all of us are born to live in hope despite the mounting evidence. Storm Beach. Not that it matters, but this followed a visit to Druridge Bay some while back. Storm Beach. It feels like an achievement, emptiness reorganized to make the matter plain. In the long pool trapped behind the shingled bank, the sky is blue and bitter. Amstel crates and scalps of ragged weed have likewise been reconsidered, while the sea has gone somewhere as if for good. No distance has been spared, and the horizon is revealed as yet another obsolescent form of measurement, leaving only the sublime by which to take a sun-blind bearing. It's freezing when we stroll on stage. We find the rake is steeper now, as if at last we ought to broach the fundamentals, wisely put aside long since in weatherproof compartments for such a day as this. But instantly it's clear that ours will not be speaking parts. The gulls will do all that. In this austerity of blazing salt-charged air and stunned geology, we're only here to represent the crowd who cross and go to do the greeting and the mourning further on, further out. This one will really cheer you up. This is called Madness. Took one tab too many, and you lost your place. The last I heard, you were haunting auctioneers for giant wardrobes you'd no room to house. The last I heard. It must be 30 years. Step through another giant door, push past the overcoats that hide the street lamp in the wood where it has snowed a century. Lie down again and close your eyes and rest. You were never really going out with me. I cannot save you. I never could. Blue dusk, snow falls. You must be cold. You won't be told, my crone, my beauty, ruined child. Thank you.
delight to be here. And it was really great to work together with these fantastic poets, fantastic English poets. Oh, Scottish, sorry. I don't know. I just read. This is a poem that consists of two parts. The first part is about the ideal of running, and the second part is running in a park in Amsterdam, the Vondelpark, and it's really crowded there. It's not easy to have this ideal. This ideal way of running. Niet wij rennen. We denken aan doelloos, aan ongeremd rennen. We rennen en rennen, vertragen het beeld. Zet af, zweef en land. Elke pas rolt van de hak naar de bal van de voet, naar de grote teen. Elke afzet vol kracht, elke pas voor de sprong. Zet af, zweef en land, zet af en zweef. We zweven en zweven in ongeremd rennen. We luchtklieven meer dan we grond raken. Zet af, zweef en land, zet af en zweef, land, zet af. We denken ons doelloos, ons ongeremd rennend. We lopen ons leeg, het lijf tot een pijl. Moeiteloos rennen we, niets doet nog pijn. Niet wij rennen, het pad rent. We dragen nu loopschoenen. Rennen langs Moeder Ros, langs Vondel. We rennen door bosplantsoen, rozentuin, knerpen op schelpguis. We denken ons doelloos. We ploeteren doelloos het paardenpad af met opstuivend zand. Ook het pad rent. We rennen en denken ons ongeremd rennend. We punteren een voetbal terug naar het veld of een boom in. We denken ons ongeremd rennend. We rennen ons een langharig mormel in de kuit. Rennen ons het getier van zijn baas in het oor. Want wij zijn het, wij rennen, een hond weet niet beter. Niet wij rennen, het park rent. And the next poem I wrote in memory of a Somali filmmaker, Abdi Ismail Yama. He, in January 2009, a very cold night, it was minus 17 degrees or something like that, and he drowned in a canal in Amsterdam. He was just 35 years old. He was living in Amsterdam since, well, around his 15th year, or 13, he didn't know. And he made some lovely poetic films, and I was just working on his big first film. Dat de gracht niet wist. Dat je oren nog zuisden van gesprekken, muziek, dans. Je nog zwiebelde van het laven aan mensen, drank. Stilhield bij de eerste tjiep-tjiep van de dag. Dat je luisterde, vrieskou je longen inzoog, luisterde. Dat de ochtend gloorde en jij op strobenen langs de gracht inzoomde op rood. Schetterde hoe mooi, hoe koud. Misschien iemand wekte die glimlacht, vloekte, weer doorsliep. Ik denk dat je straalde, dat het steen zomaar ophield en het water begon. Dat je nooit zo koud, dat het snel ging. Ooit vertelde je mij van een rivier met één boom, die geen boom heet, maar verkoelende schaduw. Je streelde een knoest. Iemand vroeg je, waarom? Ben je niet rijk? Jij kaatste, wie ziet de werkelijkheid? Wie de boom bewondert of wie de schaduw opzoekt? Jij zou willen dat de gracht voor ons gracht blijft. Vandaag zou je mij antwoorden, wie ziet? Wie? Het voorjaar in glinsters op de gracht ziet stuiteren? Of wie zoekmaker denkt, moordenaar, graf.
such a pain to have to get up and read poems when it's so joyous listening to poems. And certainly for me, one of the great pleasures of our project has been, it's just an excuse to pursue your curiosity about other people's poetry, but also such a great excuse to just spend time working really closely with other poets. It's the only time you get to do it, in my experience. So this is Frankenstein's Golem. Forgive me harping on this theme. Who is this, passing through darkness, passing swiftly through the shadows in a landscape not yet given shape by daylight, slipping shapeless as a shadow through the dark and unknown places, wearing the dark next to his skin, wearing a pelt of pine and stone? Who is this? Atoms seething on his skin, passing electric through the dark where he was buried and from which he was lifted, not by love, by power alone, lifted from death and forced to pass again through his own dying. Who slips away between the rocks as waterfalls electrify the dark? Who is this on the mountain where mornings break along the rocks, orange, then pink, then terracotta, the light new and tenderly wrought? As Sean would say, and if you thought that was cheerful, death. Are you listening? You are listening to the world you think, but you hear yourself over and over, the dark tongue of the world, its shaded places under the trees, beyond the lights, the dark falling from your feet so deep that you could fall through it forever. And how loud the world is with darkness in the trees. It caws like parakeets, snakes through the grass, sits in your eye, plumb center, the dark tongue of the world rising up through you as you fall. Dear self, dear lonely self, falling, silently mouthing through sound. Very craftily, I've got an optimistic poem at the end. March lapwings. Now everything begins to move and everything stays where it is. Each ash tree and each hummock shifts inside itself. Even the grass is shifting and the electric lapwings cry, change, change, because the common melts and flows. Even the earth melts and flows like thawing ice. How lost the senses are in this disturbance. Here it comes again, the new electric cry, change, change, as it moves past us. Thank you.
And finally, each of our Dutch poets is going to read a poem by Menno Wigman in tribute to Menno. And finally, we're going to play Menno reading his translation produced during a trio of one of Fiona's poems from a recording at PoetTrio International in Rotterdam last year. So we're going to end on Menno's voice. So, Helene.
Yeah. Well, he definitely died too. I'm sorry. I was planning to say something about it, and this is. Probably a bit, I didn't plan this. He definitely died too young. He was only 51 years old. And, well, he was a classical poet. He wrote in the tradition of romantic poets like the French Mallarmé and Baudelaire, which doesn't mean he was out of this world. He was very much a son of his time. He had been a drummer in a punk band, and in punk bands, I have to say, he didn't look like a punk, really, though. He wore a suit almost all the time, also when he went to punk concerts. The city was his habitat. Amsterdam was his city, and he lived there the life of a poet. He awoke around noon every day, and he went on until deep in the night, writing, reading at home, or meeting friends at his favorite restaurants and bars. I was always in for a good conversation, and I had a lot of great conversations with him. And I loved his very fine sense of humor. He was a wonderful poet and a wonderful person. Slotsong. De hemel, het schaamdeel, het graf, niet nu. Nu even niet. Mij gaat het om de straat. Hoe elke stapje tot een prooi verlaagt. De schoensmid hoopt dat je hem zo verliest. De ober rekent op een lege maag. De kroegbaas bidt dat je van dorst vergaat. En elke winkelier wil dat je mak en ondoordacht een apparaat aanschaft. Dat het exact binnen 4 jaar begeeft. En als jij het begeeft, reken dan maar niet dat het gecijfer dan verstomt. Geen mens gaat gratis in de grond. Niet nieuws. Ik weet het. En de jaaromzet gaat voor. Het lichaam, heet het, is een tempel gods. Je sterft alsof een fruitkast geld uitkost.
I didn't know Menno at all. The thing is, I met him for the first time when we did the poetry trio in Rotterdam. And I'm always in the habit of observing people when they don't look. So what I observed by him, through him, with him, what do you say in English, is that he was quick. He was also observing, so I was observing him, and then I saw that he was quickly moved. He had quickly tears in his eyes when he saw a woman passing with a dog, or somebody order a drink or something. So that's the only remembering I have of him, that he was a person who was quickly moved by, I think, normal little things, like a poet has to be, of course. Otherwise he cannot write good poems. I read Body, My Body, also about his death. I don't know, maybe he foresaw it or so. Lichaam, mijn lichaam. Lichaam, mijn lichaam. Hoeveel handen van hoeveel vreemden kreeg je op je af? Ooit was de dood een klamme kappershand. Toen kwam de vrieskou van een stethoscoop. Weer later brak je in een tandartsstoel of zat een valse leerkracht aan je hoofd. En dan die metro's met dat drukke vlees, dat restvolk dat als vissen langs je gleed. In winkels, liften, stegen en coupés. Lichaam, mijn lichaam, denk toch aan de geur van eerste kamers en verliefde lakens, de lente die het in ons werd. Want wij zijn bang en angst duurt soms een lichaam lang. Straks lig ik daar en wordt mijn haar gekamd.
Ik zie ze lopen tussen bomen, maar zien is niet meer dan gissen naar de vormen donker afgedrukt in de donkerte. Als zou het verleden een grote grot zijn, waar we hurken zonder benul bij ons vuur, terwijl onze dromen achter ons oplichten. Op de hand, waar we onze handen hebben geplaatst, waar we ooit onze handen plaatsten om te vangen wat ze daar zagen bewegen, waren die beesten, die springen en vallen in de donkerte, als konden ze de onzen zijn, als kwamen ze naar ons toe, kwamen ze tot ons door het licht van het vuur.
Thanks everyone. We'll reconvene at 2 and there's lunch provided at this stage 2 bar. Thanks very much to all the readers. Thank you.